Welcome to On the Point Podcast, a podcast for all things Overwatch with a heavy focus on League, discussing roster moves, weekly matchups, and how the hell are we at June Joust play-ins already?
It's genuinely crazy, like how fast that's gone because the May Melee felt significantly longer than this.
It did. It wasn't, but it felt longer. And I think part of that was the season was just starting up again. We were still getting used to the schedule. It was fresh. And now we're like, what do you mean it's tournament time again already the weekend after this? What? What? We're
Yeah,
already sending people to Hawaii? Can I go? So,
I, God, it'd be nice.
yeah, whenever they were showing all of the Hawaii stuff during the breaks and then, following the Florida Mayhem social media and seeing all of the cute stuff that Swing Chip posted. And I'm just like, it has been years since I've been to Hawaii and I want to go back so badly.
I was there in 2019 for Christmas.
Nice.
Well, that's what happens when that's where the in-laws are.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Katie. I'm the support main.
I'm CJ, I'm the tank main.
And let's get right into this with last week's results. We had some crazy ones and we had some ones that you kind of called a mile off.
I'm glad you started there because the first two games were definitely of that nature. London Spitfire takes on the Dallas Fuel, and well, the plane goes down spitting blue flames as Dallas picks up the 3-0 win. The Gladiators take on the Vancouver Titans and pick up a 3-0 win as well. I will admit, though, the Gladiators Vancouver match was weird. Like,
It was
Gladiators,
bizarre.
they were playing really passive and kind of sloppy. They it just it didn't look great. It wasn't a super encouraging performance from either team, but the Glads especially I was expecting more out of, and then when they had this showing I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be interesting when they play Atlanta later in the week."
Well, and I figure if you're gonna have a shitty opening match for the tournament, you want to have a shitty opening match against a team that's at the bottom of the roster. I looked at the everyone power rankings, not just the regional ones, and I think
Yeah.
Vancouver's at like 19 out of 20.
I
So,
genuinely am not surprised by that. And we'll see what happens because I will say I do think Chongshik has looked okay. Like
yeah,
he hasn't looked bad, but the thing is with the Vancouver Titans as they currently exist, we have a similar problem that I had with the Houston Outlaws, which is like you've
all
got
the
a
pieces, none of the cohesion.
well, that's part of it, but I also thought they were missing pieces for the majority of their existence. Like I really like I love Linkster as a human being. I've been in his chat a bunch. I've run into him a few times. Really cool guy. He needs to find more consistency in his form because this weekend he was just really not getting it done.
And you can't really afford to be hot and cold because when you're cold, there goes the match.
Yeah, like the Vancouver Titans I want to say are probably, in terms of just sheer performance, the team that has like impressed me the least.
I'm honestly wondering how much of a time they're having signing players, how much of a time they had during the off season trying to pick up players.
I wonder that as well because, like, I'm surprised that they have Teru and Changshik to a certain extent, just because they've like with the way they treated their previous Korean roster, like I
Teru and Chongshik were both contenders, though, weren't they?
Yeah, but Teru was pretty much entirely Korean contenders. Like he kind of made his name with almost a year on O2 Blast. He was on Meta Athena. He was on X6. It's all been teams that are either South Korean or have, if they've played in other regions, still Korean rosters with Korean management. Changshik has played outside of Korea though with Fusion University, so a little more experience on that front.
My point there is, and I think we were talking about this in terms of, I want to say Boston recruitment a little while ago, and
Yeah.
last season's midseason Vancouver recruitment, is if you're in contenders looking to get up into league, it is any port in a storm. It's a way to get your foot in the door, and even if it's not the best season ever or the best season at all, you can at least show up and say, "Hey, I'm a league player," and then see if you can get a trade to a better team based on your individual performance. Like, that I understand. I wonder
Mhm.
how much trouble they had with recruiting other league players, just in terms of, do you really want to play for the team, for the organization that dropped their team in the middle of the season
I think
last
that
season?
I think that's legit, but I also wouldn't be surprised to hear that they just don't want to spend a lot of money, because I remember like the while the like Vancouver Titans original, like the runaway roster, got fairly solid pay, or like, pretty damn good pay, especially like, noticeably above the league average. But Fisher and Jaehong, when they got signed, were getting paid more than the rest of the team, and the rest of the team, for getting second place overall, for winning one of the tournaments, wanted more, and that was one of the points of contention.
Well, gee, it's almost like they got second place overall and were doing incredibly well. Like, huh, why would you want to be paid for a good performance?
Yeah, but it's one of those, like, the London Spitfire and the Vancouver Titans, I think, are, in terms of the West, the bottom of the barrel, and like with London, I know that Shax can do a lot better. Hybrid has had flashes of brilliance. I think Mulfig and Hadi have a lot more potential than they've been able to show. Like, they commit, they push, and like I feel like, in terms of like what we've seen on the field, they're the only like sort of consistently bright spots on the team. And I know that that's not, that's when I say consistently bright, I am grading that on a curve. Um,
I mean, you kind of have to when you're talking about the bottom tier teams right now.
yeah, I think Ripa has a lot of potential. Kellex is someone who I've always he's never impressed the hell out of me, but he's always been like solid. And then Blase is, admittedly someone I've never been very high on, but
Would you say you've been blasé about him?
I knew that was coming.
How could I not? Come on. Right there. It's right there.
Yeah, I've just never been particularly impressed with his performance. Like, outside of the one, stretch where he was like the Doomfist warlord, he's been feast or famine and predominantly left his team starving. Um, but like, there are players on there that right now I could see, with the right coaching or like a certain adjustment and attitude, really popping off. Whereas I haven't seen those same flashes of brilliance, those same like moments where I'm like, okay, you could get here,
Yeah.
with the Titans.
I mean, for London this weekend in their matches, they're both 3-0s, but we saw them showing some signs of life. And I
Hmm.
remember writing, I think it might have been to you, I like that London's showing signs of life, but why are they showing them against the Outlaws?
Yeah.
So that was, you know, heavy
Yeah.
bias on my part, but that's this entire podcast. Heavy bias on my part.
So yeah, those were the NA matches for Friday. Then, getting into Saturday, we start off with the Shanghai Dragons versus the Los Angeles Valiant. We actually saw Who Are You get played on that first map. I thought he looked solid.
Yeah, he
Like,
looked pretty damn good.
yeah, I was happy to see him, and I was happy to see him. Like, I feel like it was definitely so so he's a really aggressive player. He's a guy who's definitely sort of like that carry Um, he's a guy who you put resources in to let him carry the team in his really aggressive play. Like you kind of need to like build your strategy around that, which is one of the reasons I think he was kind of for the NYXL, I believe, when they had him, like maybe not the best pickup because let's be real, like in their the height of their power, the guy who was getting all the resources was Jonak. And then when you
Yeah.
had Haksal, who's also a super aggressive carry DPS, like he requires a lot of resources and just never really gelled well. But I'll be interested to see how he looks when he's playing against a team that's not the Valiant.
Yeah, again, if you're going to bring out your new person, if you're going to try something out, you do it against a lower level team, which again, your match against the Valiant is always going to be your well, let's try something new. Well, let's fuck around and find out match cuz there's not a lot of finding out to be done in terms of consequences from the other team. But there is some finding out to be done in terms of does this work for us? Can we communicate effectively? How is our placement? Like,
Yeah.
I know it's an actual league match, and I know that during this match, the Valiant did manage a draw with Shanghai on Volskaya, but still, it's I will be doing this bitter X thing for the rest of the season. Let's be real. It's still the Valiant. It's not gonna be that hard.
Yeah, like I think the only reason they're not the bottom of the league is because London has played more games right now. Like the only reason London's in 20th and not the Valiant.
Is London in 20th right now? I thought the Valiant was currently in 20th.
No, because London has played all 8 games. The Valiant have only played 6, and so London's 0-8 with a map differential of -20, where the Valiant are at -17.
Ah, well, that'll change. Like I
Yeah,
said, I'm going to be doing this bitter X thing for an while. And I
yeah.
feel like I am justified in doing so.
I'm not going to argue
Anyway,
against that. So following that match, we had the
New
bleh,
York versus
yeah,
Seoul.
the New York versus Seoul. And New York goes down 3-1 against the Dynasty. Then back over to NA for our Saturday games. Houston Outlaw versus the London Spitfire. Houston picks up the 3-0 win, though London did definitely have a couple moments at the start.
Yeah, again, I like that they're showing signs of life, but why are they doing it against the Outlaws? you
Yeah.
know, this
Mhm.
again, I joked about this last episode, but it's an Outlaws fan. Even when we're having a bad time, we're having a good time. I'm used to being hurt. It's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
So after that, the Shock go up against the Toronto Defiant, and the Shock pick up the 3-1 win. But what I have to say about this game is Aspire fucks.
Oh my god. There depending on the rules of recruiting nowadays, because I know they made some different rules, etc., during the tournament season, essentially last season. And I know we have some things in place for, again, COVID measures because we're still in the middle of a pandemic. But oh my God, I will be gobsmacked if the Defiant don't figure out some way to keep Aspire on more than just a 30-day contract. Because damn, talk about showing signs of life. They took a map off the Shock. We were expecting an easy 3-0 here, and the Shock and Defiant was like, we're going to give it everything we have, though. And
Yeah,
that
we're
turned out to
gonna
be more than expected.
we're gonna get the Toronto smash in there at least once.
Yeah.
So after that, we had Atlanta versus Gladiators, and Gladiators picks up the 3-1 win. Though that game could have very, very easily gone either way. This one was a fucking close match with both teams like, just trading body blows at certain points.
Oh yeah, this was a knockdown drag out. And honestly, I caught the VOD of this later because I was out running errands as you do. Came back to check on the stream, saw the Gladiators up 2-0 and went, "What?" I mean, I'll take it, but what? So,
Mhm.
kind of a wild day. Custa's very happy being the only person to have predicted the Gladiators to win this one.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, no, they looked a lot better. They were playing more decisively, more aggressively than they were against Vancouver. They were just coming up clutch when they needed to. Like both of these teams were really trying to grind out this win, and it was a fucking awesome match to watch.
Yeah, Gladiators got out their terrible match the previous day, and today they're like, all right, we shook the rust off. We're used to this hero pool. Let's fucking go. And they did. Was
They
not.
they fucking went.
They
Just
fucking
like
went.
we will now go over to Asia for the Pacific theater of matches. Uh,
That one
I was
got
a
away from you a little bit.
little bit.
A little bit.
I didn't have. I just completely lost the plot like in the middle of the fucking sentence. I'm not even gonna lie. I just forgot the term APAC.
I was wondering. See,
I just forgot APAC.
this is why my segue just tends to be moving on.
Look, I'm usually good with it. I'm usually good with it.
I know, but
But
that's the nice little multi-purpose. Yeah, I almost said jigsaw, pocket knife, very different things. Uh,
let's be real. Anyway, speaking of and just like having it be completely irrelevant to what you're about to segue to, it's funny. Like the amount of times I've used that when we just go on a tangent. And anyway, speaking of space pirate lesbians, like
I love that that's what you pulled up.
I feel like that's the most ridiculous one.
I mean, everyone should watch Vandred. It's terrible, but it's also pretty great. As long as you don't take its philosophy as seriously as it seems to. Anyway, the NYXL versus the Valiant. I'm so mad I predicted this incorrectly. Fuck me. Wow. It's that kind of night, ladies and gentlemen. Incorrectly. Uh yeah, I called a 3-1. It was a 3-0 in the favor of New York. I gave the
And
Valiant too much credit. I won't make that mistake again.
I was gonna say I didn't think that's a mistake you of all people would make.
Well, here's the thing. New York has been consistently inconsistent in this hero pool so far,
I
and they've
yeah.
definitely gotten waxed in places where they probably shouldn't have been. So I feel like giving the Valiant a map there was more of a nod to New York only sometimes being able to find its ass with both hands. You know?
Yeah, no, I can accept that. I can accept that.
And I
So
mean, given that the Valiant wow.
it
Now
sounded like
I'm
you were
losing
about to.
things in the middle of a
Yeah,
sentence.
it's yeah. Did you just forget the word fight?
No, I was going for fought Shanghai to a standstill, and I'm like, that gives them way too fucking much credit. They got a draw on Volskaya when Shanghai has been drawing 2CP maps all fucking season.
Yeah,
That's
but
not a big deal. So
normally it's against like the other end of teams, and they're like, there's a map completion or two on both sides.
fair. Point being, I gave them credit. That was a mistake.
Yeah, they
My poor pickums.
So next, we have the Seoul Dynasty versus the Shanghai Dragons, and Shanghai continues to edge ahead in this rivalry, picking up the 3-1 win, and that concludes the APAC matches for the week and brings us back to NA, which starts off with the Toronto Defiant versus Houston Outlaws, with Houston picking up the 3-1 win, and once again, Aspire, good shit. Like Toronto looks to be increasing in strength, especially with this new dangerous weapon in their arsenal.
See, Toronto showed up against two of the tougher teams in the roster right now. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't want to say Houston's on top of the world because let's be real, that's Dallas, but both of them are much stronger than they've been in previous seasons. And San Francisco, while no longer the powerhouse that we knew in seasons 2 and most of 3, continue to be incredibly powerful. That taking a map off of San Francisco when your main DPS player is down and you are on average historically an average to below average team, it's nothing to sneeze at.
No,
So,
not at
I
all.
kind of want to see what Toronto looks like against teams that are, and I hesitate to say more on their level because that feels a little condescending, but now that they've shown some life against the top of the pack, I want to see what they do with the above average team. I want to see them punch Atlanta in the face. I Let's be completely real. That's kind of what I want now
Mhm.
because Atlanta is scrappy. So I
They
want to
are.
see that.
And like Toronto, they have been eliminated from June Ja's contention. They with the loss to Boston, with the losses to San Francisco and Houston, but the tail end they looked to be on an upwards trajectory, and this was a team that I did think had some upside, partially because of the rebuild that they've done, but also with the new coaching staff in there because um, so they have Yang One as an assistant coach, who was the head coach of Runaway slash the Vancouver Titans for much of the 2018 and 2020 season.
Nice.
But the other thing is their head coach is KDG. And KDG was the coach for the Seoul Dynasty when they started playing the Team A, Team B, and started picking things up towards the end of the 2018 season. Then he moved over to the Philadelphia Fusion and really got the Philadelphia Fusion to the most consistently elite state that we've seen them in so far before moving now over to the Toronto Defiant and bringing with him players like Sato, like Hisu, and bringing in a bunch of well scouted talent like Aztac and Ansun J, and having Neist and Lastro, bringing in like a good mix of league veterans, players that he has previous experience with, and some solid pickups outside of that. This is a team that I think does have upside, and I'll be interested to see if this is where they kind of start to realize that, like during the summer showdown.
Yeah, and I also think, again, we're back in Hero Pool land. It'll be interesting to see what the Hero Pool is for Summer Showdown and how that affects things. But yeah, I think you're right.
And
There is
like,
no Hero Pool for Summer Showdown, it's only for Countdown
mhm,
Cup.
yep.
Oh my god, one of these days I will remember that. Ah!
But yeah, I'll be very interested to see what they end up looking like. Like, I don't know that I'd put KDG in like the absolute top tier of coaches, but I think he's a very competent hand, and I'm interested to see like what he can accomplish with what I think is a pretty damn solid roster.
Yeah.
Um,
So again, you said they're eliminated, and nobody was expecting the Boston Inquisition. Holy cow!
no,
But it will be interesting to see next tournament what we get out of them.
it absolutely will be. I'm very interested to watch out for that. So after Toronto versus Houston, Atlanta took a 3-0 win over the Vancouver Titans, and then in the absolute fucking banger of the week, Dallas versus San Francisco.
And San Francisco walked away with that win three
Yeah,
one.
3-1 with a draw on Temple of Anubis.
Yeah, I thought for sure it was gonna be a 3-2, and I picked San Francisco, but I'm like, nah, there's gonna be a knockdown drag out. We're going to 6 or 7 maps because we're crazy. Like, because again, we are coming back with revenge shock.
Yeah, and they definitely like this was the first time like that I feel like we got to see the shock in the state we expected to see them in from day one. Like the DPS line, which had so much potential and so much fucking power to dominate on paper, finally lived up to that. And like Glister, Nero, Striker, they all had really good performances. And like, Violet on Lucia wasn't particularly great, but Twilight on the Ana is still just as good as it ever was. And so Busan was super close. Dorado, San Francisco just absolutely blew out Dallas. Anubis, they battled to a draw with San Francisco kind of taking the early lead and Dallas kind of clawing back. Dallas looked dominant on Eichenwalde. And then with Ilios, this one could have gone either way, but it's just, well, Dallas just was absolutely lost and sloppy. They just played badly on well. The other two could have gone the other way. So I think they lost well. They won Ruins, and then Shock took Lighthouse, and that was another really close one. Like this could have gone to map 6, and I was super excited and stressed watching this because on the one hand, like this was so fucking close, and I'm definitely not mad. Like this was not a performance where like my team fell down or anything. But I was also genuinely as interested as I was to see Dallas, come back and win. I was also very curious to see if the Shock's mental was going to hold up to being up 2-0 and then potentially being in that reverse sweep position. Like that would have been a really interesting place to sort of gauge where their head's at.
And I mean, they held up fairly well.
They did. They looked great. And like I said, Ilios, Dallas just made more mistakes. Shock
Yeah.
was the better team on there, even if it was pretty close for like outside of well, which they just won well straight out. Like no other way to put it.
I feel like this has been the closest back and forth match we've seen for the Shock since that week 1 throwdown with Houston.
Yeah, this was in terms of just sheer entertainment value and level of play, this might be like for me the best match we've seen this season so far.
Oh, yeah.
Because especially like when they're getting into like the later stages and they're just blowing alts left, right, and center, it was bringing me back to like the 2018 Vancouver Titans versus Shock like stage finals where it's just both teams going fucking super saiyan and just the fights just turn to these apocalyptic exchanges of ults.
And this was just a regular play match. I
Yeah,
am
or 2019,
sure.
excuse me.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know what you meant. I am sure that we will see them run into each other again during the during the June joust.
Yeah.
I will be, and I know that Dallas is like right on the edge, but also Dallas and San Francisco all have I'm looking at the standings right now, and there's a number of teams that have only played 2 of their matches. So
Yeah.
I will be very surprised if Dallas or San Francisco get eliminated.
Oh yeah, like the thing is, the majority of the field, like out of the 12 teams in NA, only 4 have their records locked and sealed. And we'll get into that a little later when we get towards predictions, but this is like the June joust. We're in a very interesting place with the ascension of Atlanta, the Shock kind of finding their footing. If Gladiators can maintain this trajectory, Boston's unprecedented upswing. Um,
Well, and we have Glads versus Boston next week.
Yeah. And then we still have teams like the Florida Mayhem uh, who have looked, who are strong contenders. And we'll see if they're able to sort of claw their way back into contention or what that's going to look like.
Yeah, Florida being down right now. I think that's the big surprise for me, but honestly, Boston is where their place would normally be.
Yeah,
Boston is
yeah,
sitting in that slot that Florida would normally take up. So
pretty
like
much.
so there's no way Vancouver or Washington are moving up there. That's just not happening. But there's definitely some contention within those other few slots. It's going to be wild. Anyway, I think that's predictions territory where we nail down who exactly we think we're going to see there. Cuz why not? But
Yeah,
that's a way away.
it
And I
is.
think at this point we go into news.
Yeah. So first off, the two very obvious pieces in the the on the point newsletter. Toronto signs Aspire on a 30-day contract. We know because we've seen him play. But I hopefully they'll pick him up because he looked fucking baller.
I feel like after this weekend they would be fools not to. in much the same way we looked at last season's playoffs run with Washington and went, they're keeping Decay after this, right? Well,
I
they are. We just don't know where they put him.
Yeah, no, they've apparently lost him in shipping or something.
Yeah. Yeah, he's somewhere. He went off to
And
go steal the Declaration of Independence.
and
Who
this is a
knows?
meta that he'd be great in.
Oh my god, yeah. Again, I go back to fucking season 2 Valiant putting Cookie on Lucio and benching Custa and all of us sitting here going,
Because Custa just
"Why though?"
understood the meta too well, according to Moon.
Fucking shit. Sure.
That
Brilliant. Okay.
that was just the dumbest thing that I think I've ever heard, and it's amazing to me that like he's the head coach of the Shanghai Dragons now. That it's
I feel
that
like
it's
many of us are in better places than we were in 2018.
you're not wrong. It's just funny to me that he went from the head coach of a wildly inconsistent team to like one of the most consistently good teams, even if their performance has been a little more up and down this season.
And
Um,
Custa's on the desk,
yeah,
which let's be real, that's kind of where he belongs.
he's
He's
good.
a natural. He's a good host.
He absolutely is. He's got a great personality, a lot of charisma. He's a good talker. Like it's a spot that suits him very nicely.
Yeah.
So the other bit of confirmed news is Vancouver has in fact signed Changshik. Last time we talked about it was just a rumor, and I think he looked solid. Like he, with the state of things, it's hard to really get a read on how good or how good he is or how much he's struggling or whatever, just because of the state that the team's in. But
Yeah.
we'll see how this progresses for both Vancouver and for Changshik. That
Now
being
we go into rumor
Yeah, I was about
territory.
to say, that being said, those are the facts. Here are the rumors.
So
First
everyone
off,
break out your shaker of salt,
yeah,
None of this is confirmed yet.
yeah.
We're just
Save
yep.
at least some for the end because, like, when we get to the big rumor, like that's the one that should probably be taken with the most salt. But we'll get into that. First off, Halo with a bunch of reports that first off, DM is considering retirement and may make a decision on it in the near future. That would be so sad considering what a fucking talent he is, but he just hasn't been getting played by Shanghai. And if he's
Which
just
is
tired of
wild to me.
Yeah, but we've talked about it. Like they did play him a little bit at the beginning, but they just didn't look as solid without Lip in that lineup. And um and with Fleta, like Fleta and DM have completely separate like hero pools. Like Fleta's much more of the projectile flex kind of guy, whereas DM's like a hit scan DPS. So normally Lip would be the person you take out for someone like DM to come in, unless you're playing a very sort of specific style of comp. And I don't know, like being put on the bench and failing to perform, like it can definitely get frustrating and all that. But we haven't heard anything official yet, so hopefully, we get to see him play more. Hopefully, we get to see him in a different environment if Shanghai doesn't have an intention to play him. And if he ends up
Yeah.
deciding to retire, if this turns out to be legitimate, then, best of luck to him in whatever comes next.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit last week about Erster's retirement,
Yes.
where playing on Shanghai is big fish, but also big pond. A
Yeah,
lot of competition there.
it absolutely is.
So this makes sense.
Yeah, especially since Who Are You actually, got to come in and play.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on that one.
We
Continuing on with the Halo rumor report.
Yeah, next is that the Hangzhou Spark may be parting ways with Godsby in the near future, and apparently they had also offered Dallas Godsby before Dallas ultimately signed Pine.
Huh.
Uh, so I am definitely interested. That would have been interesting, and I don't think Godsby would have been a bad pickup, but how to put this? He's like Diet Carpe, where it's like all mechanics, no brain in terms of like the positioning and shit. You kind of see what I mean?
Ah, yes, and I think that's our episode title.
He's like Diet Carpe.
No, all mechanics, no brain.
Yeah. I think Diet Carpe is funny.
Anyway, you were saying.
But yeah, like the thing is, he goes on flanks, he gets, shut down and killed. Like his positioning is not great, even if like he does have that pop off potential. And so, I feel like Dallas felt confident enough with Pine with whatever happened in, scrims and that to pick him up. And I feel like Godspeed might be able to find a place on another team, but with the Hong Show Spark, they have a pretty damn strong roster and a pretty fucking big one.
Yeah.
Um, so it really is just like what sort of place is he gonna end up having here if he stays? Uh,
Watch the Valiant try to pick him up.
yeah, and like I, I mean, honestly, he could be a good pickup for them, but the with Hang Shou, I think Shy and Architect are such, bad motherfuckers that I don't really see a reason to, take um take one of them out in favor of Godspeed at this point.
Yeah. And we're, again, fish, pond, etc. It's competitive.
It is. It is, and we'll we will still just kind of see where it goes, especially because now that Shanghai's kind of found their core, uh, or yeah, now that Hangzhou's found the
Yeah.
core players they want to field, and might as well if they can get him on another team and get some cash for the transfer and all that, like that makes a lot of sense from a team manager perspective.
Yeah. Well, just, again, a whole lot of we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the last rumor coming out of our boy Halo this week is that the Guangzhou Charge are probably going to be parting ways with assistant coach Neko at some point in the near future, which Neko is the last coach on their team.
I was gonna say, wasn't he the last coach standing? We really are doing none coach with left Choi.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
man.
and the thing is, in this particular regard, like take a second and look at the performance that the Guangzhou Charge has put up in the June joust. They
Better than expected.
they got the win against New York, but they also lost pretty convincingly to Hangzhou. And if you're going to take things to the next level, if you're really going to try and make yourself into a competitor, you've got to be able to beat teams like Philly, like Chengdu, like Shanghai. If you can't do that, you're ultimately going to fall short. Oh, and Seoul. Fucking I almost forgot about them. But um, they may be 1-1 right now, but if you're trying to really sort of rebuild your coaching staff from the ground up, you don't have a lot of time to do it. So, you know,
Fair. Yeah, because this is an extremely short season.
yeah, like we're almost halfway through it in terms of your regular season matches.
Which is still insane to me.
It's kind of
It
crazy.
continues to be insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I mean, we still last week we had the rumor about, and I cannot remember his name, but there was another coach who was up for grabs in
Oh,
Guangzhou.
over No Hill.
Yes, maybe he'll wind up at Guangzhou.
It's possible, and I remember he one of the talking points that we had was the fact that I think he'd followed someone in their organization. It was that or uh, one of the other Chinese teams. I think it was Guangzhou,
Though we
but
know that social media is not always an indicator, nothing came of the whole big Smurf to do last
yeah,
week.
yeah, like definitely not the biggest indicator, but quite often can be. So
Yeah.
shrugs, and they definitely need it.
Yeah.
The only thing is, would they want a Chinese coach for a mostly Korean speaking team, or would they try and favor a coach from Korea just so they could hit the ground running a little faster? Who knows?
I mean, I feel like at this point you'd favor a coach.
You know what? Fairfax deal with that one. Can't argue that.
I remember what happened to Houston 2 seasons ago.
Yeah,
It's being a Houston fan is pain, you guys. It
yeah.
is. Very, very happy for them right now. Love them very much. Ah! So, you know, it's like, oh, this one had trouble with their house. It's almost like Simpsons did it in terms of curses. Trouble with the
Mhm.
housing? Simpsons did it. Travel issues? Simpsons did it. Ownership issues? Simpsons did it. You know? Just Houston did it. Houston did it. Houston did it. No coach? Houston did it. Damn it.
There's a reason I was constantly frustrated with them.
Yeah. Yeah. No budget, no housing, no coach. 2018 was a year, you guys.
Hmm.
No, that was 2018 to the 2019. And then the 2019-2020 season was just death. Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything happened so much to that team.
it really really is.
So we have one last bit of gossip for the night. Since
Yes.
I'm winding down a little bit from yelling about the Outlaws, I feel like I should wind up again and yell about the Valiant.
Yeah, so I was purposely kind of vague with this in the notes because I just want to get your reaction to this. But
Well, let me put my
according,
drink back down.
yeah, according to Reddit user Nothing Than Less, the Valiant are currently underpaying their roster through loopholes in Chinese law. Obviously, if this is true, this is a hugely serious problem. Ordinarily, we wouldn't like report on a rumor like this, but this guy specifically has posted a bunch of rumors about the Chinese Valiant operations in the past that have turned out to be true or at least reasonably close to the truth. So these are at least somewhat credible as sort of the rumors or sort of backstage ska sort of making the rounds on Chinese social media.
Was he the source of the Valiant is dropping their entire roster and going to China leak?
I don't recall, but he was the guy who's like, so Silver 3, High B, Molanran, Crystal, and Waya were all in the same custom game. LGE like explained some of like LGE's reasons for sort of joint operating with IGC when Valiant got moved out there. Um, next, and so a lot of the details of what he's said have panned out in the past.
Yeah, so not a confirmed source, but a relatively reliable one.
But one who's been on point enough that this is at least worth considering.
Yeah.
So
Well, god fucking damn it, Valiant.
yeah, getting into this. So two players that they had tried to pick up, guys, two players called Thor and 800, ended up falling through. And Thor's story was particularly interesting because he really wanted to be in there, and for some reason the contract process was slow for everyone, but especially for him. And he ended up getting worried, kind of got cold feet, and a few weeks before he actually got offered the Valiant contract, he signed another team with sort of full intentions to go there. but then Valiant's contract went through with the league, and both he and LGE were kind of embarrassed to find out that IGC just didn't want to pay his transfer fee.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. And so another thing was apparently Crystal was supposed to represent Valiant at like an autograph session in Hangzhou a few days later, but Spark just said, "Can you fucking not?"
Yeah, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You
Uh,
have other players on the team that you can send just because he's the biggest name. You don't. God damn.
yeah. So there's that. Another thing is that some of their coaches and one of the staff members have been like quote unquote confirmed to like not be on base or have been involved with like training with the Valiant. And then the other thing is that apparently, the Valiant players are supposed to receive the league's base salary, but due to loopholes specifically within Chinese law, they're only getting paid 5 to 6,000 RMB a month, which comes out to about 950 USD.
Oh, what the fuck?
So basically, according to the rules of the contracts, IGC is required to basically pay what was referred to as five insurance and one fund, which is basically, pension, medical insurance, unemployment insurance, maternity, occupational injury, and, a public housing fund, the mandatory benefits, basically. Um, and usually it's required for employers to calculate and manage payment of these benefits on behalf of the employees. So basically, from what I'm able to gather here, is that it seems that they're able to deduct this from the pay of the players.
That.
The
I feel
Redditor sort
like
of
that's not how that works.
Yeah, so part of it is that, part of it is restrictions on remitting large amounts of foreign currency into China. So IGC is sort of converting the money into RMB at like the minimum exchange rate, paying the players in RMB, deducting the various fees from their salaries. So what would have ended up being 7,000 to 8,000 RMB, which is still way fucking lower than what they should be making, because I think 7 to 8,000 is like 16K a year totally. Um,
Isn't the minimum league 50?
yes,
Because that's what the Valiant was doing, and that's why they had so much trouble with their roster last year, was because they were only willing to pay minimum.
yeah, but basically,
Jesus
China's
Lord.
labor laws are pretty weak, or in some cases, just not really effective at all. And so employers can use a variety of legal means to end up chipping away at the actual salary they owe people with, fees or deductions like the stuff that we've mentioned. And the players, should, even with that, end up getting something along the lines of 7 to 8,000 RMB or 10 to 15,000 after bonuses. And for, because of all these deductions and because of the rule about converting the yuan and all of that, it ends up being way way lower.
Jeez.
So
I kind of have to wonder what the league and what Blizzard would have to say about this. Because if this is true,
mhm.
if it's confirmed true, you don't want something like this in your league. You don't want these practices, or more to the point, you don't want this publicity.
Yeah.
It's one
So
of those things where it's like, get your people in line, Blizzard.
yeah, this is so obviously these So obviously, this doesn't come with a hard source on his end.
Yeah.
This is something that, again, we're only giving this any sort of credence because his track record has been good. But if this is true, even if it's like within the letter of the law and all that, and there's not any actual violation of contractual terms or, legal anything, this is really fucked up.
Yeah, and I mean, we all know that the letter of the law can be bullshit. We've seen enough we've watched enough C-SPAN clips over the past 4 years to know that the letter is sometimes just ugh.
Yeah. So it's they're
Yeah.
they're they're deducting the taxes, they're deducting the insurance stuff, they're converting the money into yuan at the minimum exchange rate. It's a lot of shady shit if this is true. That again, if this is true, like it seems like it'd be totally fucking on brand with how IGC has been handling all of this shit lately. But at the same
Yeah.
time, this is just insane.
You kind of want to hope that it's not true just because that is so much. That is so much. And all of it's terrible. But that's so
Yeah.
much. Ugh. You just want to hope like no, there was a miscommunication or no, we're making shit up or no, something. Like you want to hope that this isn't true. But also, same organization that went, so we're going to sign people. Oh, wait, we can go to China and possibly have events. We're going to drop everyone on a dime, no warning, and go. So, yikes.
Yeah.
Fucking yikes.
So
It just,
it's
even if it's not true, the fact that we're sitting here going, I mean, that tracks is, is a problem for the
yeah,
organization.
it's not something you want. And if this is true, we'll see what happens. Like the post hasn't gotten a gigantic amount of traction on the subreddit yet. I think, partially due to it being sourceless and partly because it's only been a day since it was posted. Um so this is just one of those things that, again, we will see how this develops and if the league ends up looking into this. But if this ends up getting corroborated, like, people really need to start making fucking noise about this, because the thing is, a lot of these players are probably not going to want to, for a couple reasons. Like, considering the state of Chinese labor laws, I can't imagine that sort of like arbitration, especially considering it's being operated by one company, but they're technically contracted to LG and IGC. I can't imagine like the arbitration there is going to be an easy or simple process, and it's probably still like miles better than what they were getting in Contenders.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not fucked up.
Exactly. Like that doesn't mean that they're still not having the pay that they're supposed to have fucking stolen from them.
Yeah. Yeah, again, we go back to we have no source. This is still a rumor. It's a doozy of one, but it is still a rumor and still needs to be treated as such.
Yeah. Take it with a big ass grain of salt, but keep an eye out just in case it does turn out to be true or it gets corroborated in some way, because if it is true, this
Holy
isn't
shit.
this isn't acceptable at all.
Oh, yeah, no. No. But until then, take it with the entire 5 pound bag of salt that I've been using every time I talk about the Valiant. Yeah. I have something actually that's not on the news, but I want to end the news section with a slightly lighter note. As of this recording, it is June 1st. Happy Pride.
Yes,
And
happy Pride.
yeah, happy Pride. Go celebrate. Say good things, wear a mask, but still celebrate good things. And we have a number of things going on to celebrate Pride. I'm sure we will see more announcements as the month goes on. The two that I know of right now are McGravy is doing a sequence of streams raising money for, I believe, the Trevor Project. So that's going on all month. Tune into his streams, throw in, it's all going to the Trevor Project. And Toronto Defiant is having an 8-team pickup tournament, which I believe registration for teams started today. And the winning team gets, I cannot remember if it was, I think it was $500, might be more, donation to the LGBTQIA charity of their choice. They are also selling Toronto Defiant Pride shirts, and they put up a mock up of these. And these are, subtle, understated, but still very good looking. And they, yeah, the winning team gets a $500 donation to the LGBTQ charity of their choice. Registration opens tomorrow, so June 2nd. All participants receive a Defiant Rainbow Pride shirt, and the Rainbow Pride shirts are also on sale, with all of the proceeds going towards the You Can Play project.
That is
So,
fucking awesome.
yeah, so Toronto's doing their stuff. And I mean, if you follow these Discords, like, all of them have Pride avatars at this point, and extra points to both Toronto and the Gladiators for using the inclusive flags that include in the rainbow the black and brown stripe and the trans flag in the arrow. Like, y'all, they're on it. I'm just waiting to see what the Gladiators do for Pride Month, because I'll be surprised if they don't do something.
Yeah.
But it's Pride Month. Remember to support your charities. Remember to support your friends, and remember that all of those letters are valid. The L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, the I, and the A does not stand for ally. We love our allies, but the A is for ace. Fight me. I'm ace. I will throw hands. We're dangerous.
No fear.
No fear. Yeah.
I do want to add one other thing that's not on the news that is also lighthearted, though not as much in the, genuine human goodwill and solidarity, and more in the shitposty way.
Hit me.
So, if you're watching the Vancouver Titans versus Atlanta Reign game, at the start of the series, Fried Wiener typed a bunch in the chat in Korean
Oh
to
dear.
the other side. And someone, some absolute fucking legend, Konadora on Twitter, not Twitter, on Reddit, translated basically just everyone gets in the game starting, and Fried Wiener just types in Korean, "Your mom." Teru immediately apologizes for his teammate. "I'm sorry. Iris, question mark, Pelican," just the spamming the character that's just like lol in Korean. "My mom, OMG," and then Moss is just like spamming question marks, like what? As like Changshik is laughing too. And then Fried Wiener just goes, "Tomorrow, let's go on a date." Like,
Oh my god.
in Korean again.
Oh my god.
So,
Oh my god. Bless. Just bless. I feel like when they gave him back his full name, they released his power.
pretty much.
You know?
Pretty much.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about, I hesitate to call it like stay at home Overwatch or Overwatch at home, online matches. Like, I miss being in person. I miss seeing people's faces. I would love to know what Kevster looks like. I don't think he can keep that ruse up in like in-person matches, but for now it's an amazing joke. But yeah, I love that we get to see the chat. I love
Yeah.
that we are in the days of sex, big dick, and your mom, and what's the junk difference again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Jake being a shit in chat
I love
gives me life.
that one especially. Well, the Jake's the reason they initially like didn't show chat. because he was just talking shit all the fucking time, and the league's like, "This doesn't look great. Let's just hide it." I'm like, "No, no, no, keep it."
I did
Uh,
not know that.
yeah, no, like at the very least, it was a bunch of people said like that was one of the reasons. It was just because Jake, every time he kills someone, would just go in chat and just spam question marks.
Ah, shitbirds.
I I will say I loved the junk diff one because or the like the first time we got Jake on DPS again, and he just did a big smiley face, and Dante just types one game on DPS, he's already got an ego.
It's so much fun to see the Jake rat back. It just is.
Yeah,
It's so much fun to have Jake back as a player. He was a good caster, don't get me wrong, but I love seeing him back as a player. He brings me life. I love it. And I sincerely hope that they do keep showing chat even when we go back to live matches. I don't know if they will, but I feel like this is a league that has loosened up a lot
and I think
from
it's
seasons
to its
1 and
benefit.
2.
It's
Oh my
hugely to
god,
its
yes,
benefit.
absolutely. Like I can understand wanting to appeal to meat sports fans, wanting to appeal to people who don't normally see this sort of thing. And fine, fair. But the way to do that is to not to pretend to be a professional meat sports league. The way to do that is to develop your own personality as a league and then have other
Mhm.
people draw them in. Like
Yeah,
my roommate can still talk Overwatch League with me just from listening to me talk and occasionally putting up with me going, "Can I take over the TV for the next 90 minutes? The Outlaws are playing." Like, this is how we do things. And she knows who my teams are, and she knows what the meta is, and she knows what a hero pool is. She's played Overwatch once in her life. But it's that sort of thing where you get to other people, you expand your audience via that personality. I have sent oh my god, the chat videos, the voice videos. What are they? Help me.
the
Comms check.
yeah, I keep wanting to say open mic, but no, that's the Apex thing.
Yeah, I have sent comms check videos to people with no context going, "This is why I love this, just watch it." Stratus insisting that the cold does not affect him because he's a tomato continues to amuse me. Stratus is no longer in the league, but that's still one of my favorite comms checks, and I cried every time I watched it. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is like esports inherently just appeals to a different audience than meat sports because frankly most of the people who are really into just traditional sports are going to write off Overwatch League because it's a fucking video game, no matter how slickly you produce it or how professional the presentation is, just because they don't respect the amount of work or anything. Like it's the same time that like it's the same sort of mentality that like Jimmy Kimmel or whatever was like shitting on the idea of streaming or like let's plays and that as being like it's like one step further removed from interacting with a human being or some it's just like you're not necessarily going to appeal to them via that same route because they don't put it in that same category. It's not something they view as like a legitimate competition in that way. Um, and the people who are more into esports are people who are do sort of embrace that gamer or internet culture, like that's who you're going to pull in. So worry about about bringing in the audience that is going to be receptive to your media, and then once you have actually appealed to the actual target demographic, then worry about the other shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like being a little faster, being a little looser, having more personality, because comms check was not a thing we had in season 1. Comms check came about, I want to say, mid season 2, something like that. And it was, oh my god, so good. And then this past season we've had all sorts of things to try to stave off pandemic woes. And again, I will continue to link those baking videos to people because they're insane.
I'm just going to end up watching that as I go back to like writing once we're done with this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just gonna sit down and watch Reinforce just completely fuck up a cake.
in a
How
way
did
that
he make brain frosting?
I still don't know. Like, normally that sort of separation would only happen like at a certain temperature, or like it doesn't. I've never seen. Like, I've got to like see if I know any fucking food scientists and just show them that video and just go, why?
I appreciate that this is like UFO sightings for you.
It
Like it's
is.
there, but how does it fucking work? I
Oh,
love it.
yeah, no, like it definitely is. Like, the thing is, food is one of the things that I will always pay attention to because I love to cook. If I didn't go to film school, I probably would have gone to culinary school. And it's like when I see shit regarding food or regarding like PC building or like any of the specific things that I do a lot and have a lot of practical experience with, when I see something baffling, I'm just like, what? Like, have you seen XQC's PC when he moved to the United States?
No, but I try not to partake of anything XQC does, so yeah.
And
I'm sure you've told me this story at least once,
oh,
but
I'm not going to
dude,
tell
I'm here
you.
for the cake.
I'm not going to tell you a fucking story. I'm going to show you a picture.
Okay. Give me a minute. I don't have Discord open. This, the fun behind the scenes stuff that the podcast listeners love to hear. Yeah, fuck that. This
So
is a
yeah,
tangle of wires. Forget
for
it.
those of you who haven't seen it, when XQC moved to the States, he didn't know how to build a PC. And what ended up happening was a jumble of parts on the floor with his motherboard sitting on the box from his graphics card, with like his fucking the radiator from his AIO water cooler like sitting on a bottle of Coke, hard drives just hanging loose on the fucking floor, power supply on the goddamn carpet. And as a PC builder, as someone who built like 7 or 8 this past year, um,
I
there
don't
is
know
so much wrong with this.
I don't know how many of our lovely viewers have ever seen I think it was 80s. I can never remember. The classic The Thing. Not The Thing from Another Planet, but The Thing.
John Carpenter's The Thing.
The Carpenter, yes. Um, with the crazy, incredible practical special effects, not to be confused with the modern day 20 something prequel to The Thing, also known as The Thing, with its shitty CGI effects. Not that one. We're talking about the Carpenter classic.
The Carpenter
And
one's one of
they
my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, and just the transformation sequences where things are kind of pulled apart and there's eyes and teeth and whatnot where they really shouldn't be, and it's kind of artistic in a horrifying grotesque way. That's what this computer is, but for PCs. It's a mid transformation thing.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, no.
That's the best way I can describe this to people who are not looking at this picture and have ever seen something from The Thing. And boy, if you squick easily, don't go looking for photos of The Thing.
Really
The
don't.
the effects are incredibly well done, and also, oh boy, the body horror there.
Big time.
Anyway,
Yeah,
we
if you
have
want,
predictions to
yeah.
make.
Before we get into that, I just want to say, if anyone wants to know what I'm talking about, just Google image search XQC PC setup. It's gonna be in the first couple images. You will know it when you see it.
We have predictions to now that we've gone from cakes to horror movies, we have predictions to make.
So, first up, Boston Uprising versus the Paris Eternal. I don't know why I
Oddly
went into
enough,
like fighting game announcer voice.
yeah, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. But these are the Thursday,
Sunday,
Thursday,
Sunday,
Thursday.
Sunday.
But these are the Thursday, Thursday, Thursday matches. I'm gonna go with Boston because they're kind of batshit insane, and I love Zoe's bold prediction, actually sponsored by Pringles because it was Zoe's prediction that Boston's gonna go into the June Joust undefeated in the qualifiers.
I am gonna go with Boston as well. Paris has definitely looked good and looked like they've kind of picked up a step or two. But if Boston stays in that form, I think we're going to have a pretty damn solid match that Boston ends up coming out ahead of, like maybe 3
Oh,
to
yeah.
1.
Oh, yeah.
After that, the Dallas Fuel versus the Florida Mayhem.
I
I'm
mean,
not going to keep doing it. I just
yeah, we'll be here all night. Uh, it's
yeah.
good, but yeah, it's gonna be Dallas, but I can see Florida. Honestly, I can see Florida putting up a fight and then losing because of their own mistakes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing as well because I think they're going to try and follow the template that Shock set on Dorado.
Yeah, but Florida, God bless them, has been really, really good for the most part, and then they just fuck something up and drop the entire map and the subsequent map because of it. Like they did this in the Chun Joust. It hasn't happened yet. They did this in the May Melee.
They've
They've
done it
done
in the
this in
future.
qualifiers. Yes, they'll do it in the future. That honestly, yeah, I can see Florida losing this
The botch
partially because
there,
Dallas is good, and
the,
partially because they fuck it up.
the botch there is, the botch there was, and the botch there ever will be.
The botch that is yet to come.
Yes, I
The
like I
ghost of fuck ups yet to come.
I like the thing is, in that moment, I was deciding between do I go Galadriel or Bret Hart, and I just went with Bret Hart.
I don't know Bret Hart. I do know Galadriel. And then at the end there, I went for Christmas Carol.
Bret Hart is a professional wrestler who is known for his incredibly like ridiculous level of technical skill, like being able to execute any fucking move perfectly. Really do a lot of the storytelling, little details, and how he does moves and shit. And because of that, he was kind of regarded as like the best technical wrestler in the world. And one of his sort of catchphrases was that he was the best there is, the best there was, and the best there will be.
So, going back to one of our potential titles, all mechanics, no brain.
Uh, no,
Incorrect. I'm sure
yeah,
he has a brain, but
no, he is one of the best of all time at what he does.
yeah.
Um, next, moving over to APAC, Guangzhou Charge versus Philadelphia Fusion, Philly.
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 Given how the playing has gone, I'm wondering how much of a fight Guangzhou is going to put up, because Philly has been wavering a bit, but definitely Philly.
Yeah. After that, Chengdu versus Seoul, and I'm leaning Chengdu,
Same.
but I feel like Seoul could very realistically take it as well.
3-1 Chengdu.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Next up, I don't think this is going to go either way. LA Valiant versus Hangzhou Spark. I am very confident in putting my money down on Spark.
Oh, yeah, absolutely the Spark.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
And there we move back over to NA, Boston Uprising versus Gladiators. And this is the Boston match where I'm like, okay, this could go either way. And a lot of it depends on, like, if Boston continues to do well against Paris, I think they're going to keep performing well here, but then it depends on which version of the Gladiators shows up.
Yeah. Whether we see the ones that went up against Vancouver or the ones that went up against Atlanta. And Boston and Gladiators is a rivalry.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's in line with the Zoe prediction. I have to go Boston just because their consistency has been batshit insane. And because any
Consistency,
team,
they've won 2 matches in a row.
yes, that's better than Boston has done for like 3 seasons. Give me something. Not only did they win them, they won them convincingly.
Yeah. Look, all I'm saying is, like, I don't want to. I'm definitely I'm definitely torn because they did look like night and day better, but it's one of those things of like I want a bigger sample size before I fully commit to them like getting into that upper mid tier like all the way. But this I can very easily see going either way, but I'm leaning like 3-2 Glads.
Really?
Yeah.
Wild. Usually you wow. Okay. Usually you and I would be on opposite sides there.
I
I would
mean
be picking the Glads.
I'm also a New Yorker, so fuck Boston, but
Fair. Fair. All right. Yeah, that one's going to be wild either way. And yeah, it depends
Mhm.
entirely on which version of the Gladiators shows up. And then it might just happen that Boston shows up and Paris just annihilates them, in which case I will be editing my pickums, but we'll see. We'll see. My
In
pickums are
yeah.
not great, but that's not going to stop me.
After that, we've got speaking of not great, but not going to stop them. The Vancouver Titans go up against the San Francisco Shock.
Oh, 3-0 easy clap.
Yeah, I'm
Man.
sorry. I'm sorry. I like Vancouver. I want to believe in you. I want to see you get the breadsticks, but I don't think it's going to be today.
Vancouver will be lucky to get a single drawn map
Has
against the Shock,
Vancouver
let alone
actually
taking
like
one.
has the breadsticks thing? Has that actually happened? Like, have they gone to a
No,
map
they have
by?
to win.
Like, well, the thing is, they've had games where they've won a map. They've had like a lot of 3-1s.
I
Have
think they have
they?
to win the game.
I thought it was if you get to map 5. Fucking
Dear Pizza Hut Canada, tell us things. Boy, that was a terrible
I
letter.
type in Vancouver Titans, and one of the first things that pulls up is Vancouver Titans
Breadsticks.
breadsticks.
I
Uh,
I will laugh if the breadsticks thing was only for that one match,
okay,
but nobody
so
will let it die. So,
it's get free breadsticks when a Titans match goes to a 5th map.
and they've had a bunch of 3-1s.
Yeah,
Oh no.
they quite literally
Oh
can't get the bread.
no. They can't. They can't. No. They don't even have to win. It's just a map 5.
They just
Well, it's not happening against the Shock. I could tell you that.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, Florida versus Washington.
Yeah,
It's Florida.
Florida. I hope Washington, shows up in a way that they haven't so far, but Florida's my pick here.
Are we defining showing up as playing decay?
I, part of it, but also, I talked about some of the things that I thought they were doing wrong last time. Like they just like little mistakes in terms of like not really taking the high ground, not prioritizing, the lines of sight, not giving uh not assassin, the fucking Jerry like kind of the support he needs sometimes. Um
I mean, I was joking, but fair.
yeah,
Absolutely
like
fair.
there's a lot of little things, and I do think Decay showing up would fucking help, but
Yeah.
that wasn't the only problem that I saw, and I'm sure people smarter than me picked up on others. Um,
Yeah.
speaking of problems, the LA Valiant has a huge one in the form of the Philadelphia Fusion.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not. Nope. Nope. It's gonna be the fusion. Nope.
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah,
Nope.
yeah.
Nah. Nah.
Fusion wins. Uh,
Yeah.
Next up, Guangzhou versus Hangzhou. Uh,
The rematch.
should we call this particular matchup of Guangzhou versus Hangzhou the Gong Show? Like, I know it's a Canadian term, but I just feel like considering what these teams have had going on behind the scenes this season, both like firing their head coaches, it's kind of earned. You've got El Clasico and you've got the Gong Show.
I'll take it. And also, I'm gonna just go wild and, whatever. None coach with left choice so on. I'm going for charge.
I'm going for Spark.
Spark is probably the smarter decision. That doesn't mean I'm gonna make it. That's my
I know,
life.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
Next up, Wee Paris versus the LAG.
It's gonna depend on how the gladiators play, but
I'm
I'm
also just
going for
gonna
the
say
gods.
that was genuinely not something I had been thinking of. It was literally just something that came out of my mouth, like as I was reading it.
Like, sometimes those are perfect, and sometimes those are the worst thing you've ever said, and that one was smack in the middle, so, not
It-
bad.
your days of not respecting me are certainly coming to a middle.
I respect you, just not for that phrase.
Yeah, you know what? Fair play. I'm not going to argue that I deserve it after.
Look, I peaked when I made that shitty blasé pun. All right. The rest of the episode has been downhill for me.
Yeah, and I'll say the one thing I'll take is that mine took slightly more effort than that.
Disagree. But okay.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
throwing in
You had to
Gladiators.
use the player's fucking name.
Yeah. I do that a lot.
Yeah, I know, but like using a word in the context it's meant to exist. That my thing sucked, but at least I had to like but at least it wasn't using a word in the proper context as a joke.
Oh, you mean like a good shitty pun? Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if I'd even call that a good shitty pun.
It
Like I
was
don't think
though.
that's the definition of it.
Oh, it was though. It was.
Like whatever, Los
Anyway.
Angeles. That
Yeah,
way.
definitely LA.
Vancouver Titans versus the Dallas Fuel in the Battle
No
of the Blue.
breadsticks. No
No
breadsticks.
breadsticks.
No breadsticks.
Unless Dallas wants to fuck with him, but at this point, like with Florida being potentially close and being 1-1 going into this, nah, they're coming for that ass. Like Dallas is gonna 3-0 here.
I was gonna say even if Dallas was up
I
2-0
could I
or
will say
however
I
much, they still wouldn't fuck with them. They would just take it and sprint.
oh absolutely, but I could absolutely see Sparkle just looking at the rest and being like, you want to get the breadsticks? Like, should we do that? So they keep talking about it. Like, maybe this could be the day if we want it to be. Um, like, I could see him like jokingly say, "Have you seen clips of him on stream and shit? It's fucking great."
I have not, but I feel like you're gonna link me some at some point
Probably.
soon. Yep.
And
I can
anyone who
see.
decides to look it up, headphone warning. Headphone
Oh,
warning for Sparkle.
alrighty.
Boy is very energetic.
I can see him just putting breadsticks in chat.
I
Just
had
breadsticks?
at one
Breadsticks?
point he got like a 4 or 5K like Dragon Blade, jumped up and did like a flying side kick to the fucking headrest on his chair.
As you do.
Speaking of flying sidekicks, San Francisco is going to deliver one to Washington in our last match of the week.
I think we're looking at a lot of 3 Overwatch up through Saturday because Sunday is when we get into playoffs. Oh my god, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Housed! Anyway, so at the point where we throw in our predictions for who we think is going to get in the June joust, Atlanta and Houston are both guaranteed with 3 1s and a +6 and a +5 map differential.
Yeah.
Boston and Gladiators are both at 2-0 with a +6 and a +5 respectively. One of them is going to lose that because they're facing each other. And just from the predictions, I predicted Boston with a 4-0, Glads with a 3-1. Shock is definitely getting a 4-0 with who they're facing this weekend, like no
Yeah.
question. And then I think Dallas is also going to be up 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
So Paris and Florida, man, this is just going to be hard to call for all of them, but it's really that map differential that's going to make the difference.
It is, and I really like. I'm with you in that. I think the top is gonna be Atlanta, Houston, Boston Gladiators, Shock, and Fuel. Just slightly different order.
Yeah, I mean, that's who's in the top now. And honestly, I would put Florida up there if Florida weren't going up against the Fuel this week.
That's exactly it. And I mean, whoever wins that match snatches the other spot effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not Florida's only match this week, is it? I'm losing my
Uh,
mind.
no,
No,
they
they're going to take it over Washington easily.
yeah,
But yeah, with the position that they're in up against Dallas, unless they pull some crazy ass miracle upset, I don't see them getting in there.
pretty much.
So I think what we're looking at now, yeah, Atlanta, Houston, Boston, Gladiators, Shock, and Fuel. And holy shit, Gladiators being in tournament playoffs. It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
And then
Uh,
on the APAC side, what we currently have is Shanghai confirmed with a 3-1 and a +5 map differential. And then we have Spark at a 2-0 and +5, New York at a 2-2 and a +1, and Guangzhou at a 1-1 with a +0, as well as Seoul 1-1 +0. It is entirely possible for New York to get punted out of that spot.
it very much is. That is not as concrete as you want it to be. And I think Philadelphia, like if they pick up a pair of 3-0s, they've got it.
But also, we're looking at Chengdu with their 1-1. If they manage to win both of their matches,
Yeah, I think Guangzhou is going to end up falling out of there, and uh, then it just depends on really the performances of Seoul, Chengdu, and Fusion to determine who gets in. Because if Chengdu beats Seoul, then Seoul's just not getting
yeah.
in.
Do we say the same
Fusion,
if Seoul beats Chengdu, though?
I
Because
I
Spark's got a gimme match. They're going up against the Valiant.
So the thing is, are looking like solid enough that I could see them taking a match or a map or two off of Chengdu, like especially depending on which like form Chengdu shows up. Um, so it's hard for me to say with any real degree of clarity, but I I could see that one going either way much more easily than I could see Seoul versus Guangzhou in their current state going either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's yeah, I think APAC might be a little more difficult to call because it is predicated on so many different performances.
Yeah,
But
like
New York is definitely out of those standings, and I can see, yeah, Shanghai,
just
Hangzhou.
unless the other matches just end up being close.
Yeah, possibly, but again, they've got a 2-2 with a +1 differential.
Well, yeah,
If
but
any of these teams go to pull out a 3-1,
the reason that I'm saying this is Fusion needs to win. So basically, if they win all six of their maps, they end up with a +2.
which
If
puts
they
them above
lose,
New York.
yes. But if they lose even one, then it goes to then they have the same map differential as New York, and New York beat them.
So it's the question of how well they play against Guangzhou. And I think that Guangzhou will be able to put up, just given how Philly's
Yeah,
been playing, I think Guangzhou will be able to put up more than enough of a fight to be able to take at least one map off of them.
it
Like,
is entirely plausible. Though the Fusion have had a week off to sort of reassess and see, you know, what they're, where they're at.
so yeah, I'm going to throw in Shanghai, Hangzhou, Chengdu, Seoul.
I'm I'm genuinely like torn because I think the Fusion could make it in there, but that margin of error is so fucking slim. The basically with Seoul, if they end up losing against Chengdu, I think they're out of it. If they beat Chengdu, they're in a good spot. Chengdu though, like they need a strong win against Seoul because they're also going to have a potentially competitive match against the Spark.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like Chengdu, out of the games remaining, I think has sort of the highest strength of schedule outside of like Valiant, who are just not even in the conversation.
There's a reason for that. Yeah. There's, yeah. Yeah. Valiant strength of schedule is relative to the fact that they're the Valiant. Uh,
Well, no, Hangzhou's performing well, and then Fusion, even though they haven't performed well this meta so far, Like, we've seen what this roster is capable of, and the ceiling seems to be a lot goddamn higher.
Yeah. So again, they are obviously the weakest team in this league, and
Yeah.
so their strength of schedule is going to be difficult regardless. Because of that fact, we are potentially staring down the barrel of a repeat of season 1 Shanghai Dragons. So, yeah.
We're staring down two of them, or like three, actually, because Vancouver, London, and Valiant.
True. God, what? Washington's won at least one this year, haven't they? Have
Uh,
they?
I'm fairly sure they've won like four, actually.
Okay. Man, I don't even know. I don't remember. Come to me, power rankings. Let's go. Where this is when we get in the weeds. Power rankings aren't going to help me. That's not a thing on who's won how many.
You mean
Eh,
standings?
yeah, they were a subset of power rankings. I
Yeah,
got
they're four.
confused.
Yeah, Washington is 4-2 right now.
True.
So they've
God, we
won.
haven't had many matches. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So the thing is, Vancouver, Valiant, and London are all at zero, with Valiant having by far the worst like map win percentage
And yet London has the worst map differential.
because they've played two more games and have had like the
Fair.
most punishingly brutal strength of schedule.
Fair.
Because let's look at the London Spitfires fucking like their you know their list of matches this season so far.
I mean, even
Because
just the past week, it was both Texas
yeah,
teams.
week 2, Gladiators in Houston. Week 3, Boston, which was the 3-2 El Clasico, and then the Toronto Defiant. So two top tier teams, two teams that are trying to fight their way into that contention. Then Florida after that, then Atlanta after that, then Houston and Dallas.
So they really just need to go up against Washington and Vancouver.
Yeah, I
See what
like.
happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's gonna be wild. So yeah, the play-ins for the APAC June Joust are almost anyone's game, except for Shanghai. They are guaranteed. And then in the West, it's pretty much set.
Yeah,
Not completely set. We could always have some crazy upsets, but I mean, there is some stratification here, and the line actually is between, according just to the numbers, the San Francisco Shock and the Dallas Fuel.
yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah.
this is just going to be an exciting fucking week and lead into a very interesting tournament cycle because with the Shock back in their dominant form, and Dallas like with a chip on their shoulder, but also with a potential path to beating them exposed. Like is going to have a whole lot in the elimination section in terms of just drama.
Oh, yeah. NA is going to have a lot of grudge matches and knockdown dragouts and just so far of the top 6 that we have here, every team has some sort of contention or rivalry with at least 2 other teams here.
Yeah, there are some bones to pick.
Can't wait. Can't
Me
fucking
fucking
wait.
neither. I'm so ready.
Eh. Yeah, so who do we think? So we've picked who our 6 will be. And then I think at the end of Sunday, we get our top 4 from each to go into the cup itself next week.
Ah,
because they got to fly him to Hawaii. So at the end of Sunday, who are our top two? This is the bracket builder week. You got to do it. Who are our top two on each side?
you're asking somebody who doesn't even like to fucking pick brackets to begin with. But but I want to say Dallas and Shock on NA, and then Shanghai on APAC, but also Hangzhou maybe.
Shanghai Hongsho, I'd say, would be a pretty good bet for this.
Yeah,
I
but
would love to see Chengdu go up again, but Chengdu, I mean, their chances are already who knows. Um, I think I'll agree with you for Shanghai Hongsho.
though it again could very easily go either way. Like,
I'm gonna say Houston Dallas.
ooh, you think the Shock are going to end up getting knocked out again?
You know, who even knows? But I think like we saw Vengeance Shock and we saw them go nuts. But also, a lot of their strength that we've seen has been brawl comp. Shock has Bugnuts Reinhardt play, and that's not happening. They have a lot of really good other play, don't get me wrong, but I feel like specifically losing Reinhardt was a blow to them. They
I
can
mean,
recover, but I think we have seen just as convincing performances from the Outlaws, from the Fuel. If I were completely nuts, I would do Boston Outlaws, but honestly, I think Dallas is better than that. I think Dallas is the better blue team, despite what we have just in the numerical standings right now. So, yeah, I'm doubling down on Texas.
that's interesting. That, like, I could, again, this is one of those things where on both ends, every team that's getting in here has looked so consistently strong that it's genuinely difficult for me to go into this and make a prediction that I feel confident about.
Honestly, I think the only ones who don't have a strong chance of making it in comparison to everyone else are the Gladiators in Atlanta. I think just 2 spots out of 6 in comparison with everyone else right here. And I mean, the matches that we see are very much going to depend on the standings. It's the bracketing is going to have a lot to do with this.
Yeah, the bracketing can make all the fucking difference in the world.
It really can. But that said, I do think that Gladiators in Atlanta are going to have the toughest fights to get to the
I
actual June joust
I think they're the ones with the
fights.
most to prove right now.
Absolutely. But they're proving it against Boston, San Francisco, Dallas, and Houston. So it's an upward climb for the both of them. We Those are the two where I would not be betting on them. I would bet on any of the other four, and I know there are people out there going, Boston, fucking seriously? Yes, fucking seriously. We'll see. We'll see.
Hmm.
It's gonna be wild. And
Yeah,
we're gonna sit down and record this next podcast, and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, you guys, Atlanta and the Gladiators are going to the June Joust. What happened?
the world loves to prove us wrong.
It does. It does. That's part of the fun of this. So we can sit here and go, we think this, and then the next day be like,
Fuck yo
fucking welp.
shit.
Fate waits for us to record this podcast. Let's be real. Anyway,
Now that you've
that's
said
going to be
that,
insane.
now that you've said that, Reddit check.
Yeah, before we sign off. Before we sign off, let's see if Reddit has just play the Jaws theme during this Reddit check. Yeah? Anything?
Not seeing anything.
Okay. Let's call it then. I'm Katie. You can follow me all over the social medias, as well as on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That is Kiaxet. I am also on a Rooster Teeth podcast called Rooster Team Radio. We cover all things Rooster Teeth animation and a few other fun things besides. We most recently had a Ruby Mega Super Special, and we're pulling a few things out of our archives that have not yet been released on this platform. Check that out. It's a good time.
I'm CJ. You can find me on Twitter at _rage_nerd. And yeah, I'm just picking at the same projects that I have been talking about, and eventually I will be able to speak of them.
Further bulletins as events warrant. I think that's the same thing I said last week, but it holds true.
It very well could be.
Follow us on Twitter at OnThePointPod. Yeah, as always, ending with the important things. Wear a mask, get vaccinated if and when you are able, as soon as you can. I know the side effects suck, but not getting COVID is fucking worth it. Respect and support your essential workers. Be patient, be kind. Black Lives Matter, Black LGBTQIA Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, AAPI Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. That has not changed, that is not going to change. Going into Pride Month, love and respect your fellow LGBTQIA people. If you are bi and in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, you are valid. If you are aro, if you are ace, if you are intersex, if you are queer, if you are anything that, like, yeah, everything, anything, you are valid. And I hope that you are able to find the support that you deserve. Contact your congresspeople, make sure that they are representing your interests, and vote in your local elections. Do your research, vote. It's super important because change starts local and trickles up. Wear a mask, get vaccinated, Black Lives Matter, happy Pride, and just be kind to each other, you guys. That's the only way we're getting through this. Do we have anything else?
Can't think of anything.
Alrighty, let's C9.